Today on China Daily Speak Talk, it's our absolute great honor to have the Indian ambassador to China, Mr. Kantha, in our studio today. Mr. Kantha, welcome.
Thank you very much.
First of all, it's been a year since exactly the same time last year in September when our President Xi paid a very official visit to India. And of course, both China and India signed some agreements on issues, including the construction of the industrial park. So I wonder, how is the implementation of these agreements so far?
Now, I must say that the implementation of understandings reached during President Xi's visit to India last September and subsequently during Prime Minister Modi's visit to China this May is going on very smoothly. One important understanding that was reached during President Xi's visit was to forge a closer developmental partnership between India and China. I would like to tell you that the implementation of understandings reached during President Xi's visit to India last September and subsequently during Prime Minister Modi's visit to China this May is progressing very smoothly. One key understanding that was reached during President Xi's visit related to forging a closer developmental partnership between India and China. In India, we believe that China can be a very important partner for us in taking forward our own developmental agenda, and likewise we can also contribute in small way to China's developmental story. It was against this larger backdrop that an agreement was reached on setting up Chinese industrial parks in India. We agreed at that time that industrial parks will be set up by Chinese entities in Maharashtra and Gujarat states of India. Subsequently, when Prime Minister was here, additional projects relating to industrial parks in India were agreed upon. There have been good follow-up on these projects. Chinese companies are have located in fact land for the project. We are discussing contours of these industrial parks, and we believe that this is just the beginning. We are on the cusp of a major expansion in two-way investment flows between India and China. Today in India, we have large requirements when it comes to capital inflows, both domestic capital as well as capital from foreign countries. We welcome Chinese companies to come and invest in India, especially in infrastructure and manufacturing segments. And the response that we have received to Prime Minister Modi's invitation to Chinese business leaders to come to India has been very encouraging.
I see. Speaking of attracting investments to India, I know that India is obviously becoming one of the largest markets for smartphones. And speaking of the smartphones, in China we have several starting up companies like Xiaomi or the biggest online e-commerce group, Alibaba, and they are becoming so energetic in terms of investing so much money in India. So what do you think that India can do for Chinese companies like those I've mentioned above?
As you rightly mentioned, India is a large market for Chinese companies, and Chinese companies also are emphasizing going global as part of their strategy. So I believe there is a natural fit between your capabilities and our requirements, and vice versa. You referred to Jack Ma, Alibaba and also Xiaomi. In fact, both these companies recently have announced that they will be expanding their operations in India. Just last week, in fact, Xiaomi unveiled its first made in India handset. And I believe this is just the beginning of a much larger presence in Indian market for them. Likewise, Mr. Jack Ma of Alibaba was in India some time ago. He also met with Prime Minister in Shanghai when our Prime Minister was here in May this year, and I believe that he also has ambitious plans for expanding Alibaba's business footprints in India. And these are just two examples of what we have in store when it comes to Chinese companies and their presence in Indian market.
See, since the inauguration of President Xi, this country has put forward a lot of new ideas, initiatives, including the Belt and Silk, the Belt and Road initiatives. So you probably could be more familiar than I do, because as the ambassador of China, and you have seen how much we have grown our economy in the past few years, and I believe this new strategy will do a lot, obviously, to China and India cooperation. So what do you think that India could actually be the beneficiary stakeholder in this new strategy, the Silk Road initiative?
Both China and India emphasize the importance of regional connectivity. You have unveiled your very important initiative on One Belt, One Road, Itailu. We also have a connectivity agenda in India. What we have agreed with our two countries is to explore synergies between our respective connectivity agendas and identify areas where our interests converge and work together. And we are doing that successfully. I can give you two examples of our joining hands and working together. One is AIIB, Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. It's a Chinese initiative, but India, along with 49 other countries, signed on to this initiative. India, in fact, will be the second largest stakeholder in AIIB, next only to China. And we are working very closely with the Chinese friends to see that AIIB becomes a very effective multilateral development bank, which will provide support for vast infrastructure funding requirements of Asia in particular. The second example I can give is that of BCIM Economic Corridor. We have agreed in principle to work along with Bangladesh and Myanmar, and the four countries at present engaged in a joint study group to work out the feasibility of BCIM Economic Corridor and also develop contours of cooperation. And we do believe that we will take this idea forward, working together, all four countries.
I see. Recently, there have been great news between China and India that China is about to sell our very much advanced railway technology to your country, the bullet train system. Actually, half of our train system right now is built on the bullet train railway system. So, Ambassador, what do you like? What's your perspective of this? What the chances do you see here that China could actually successfully sell our technology to India?
No, let me put this in a somewhat larger context. Indian economy has been growing at a fairly impressive rate over the last 3 decades. We have achieved an annual GDP growth rate of 6% plus over the last 30 years. And we hope to not only maintain this growth rate, but to step it up to 8%, 9% per annum. But one challenge that we have is infrastructure deficit. We need to improve and augment our infrastructure in different areas, including the railway sector. And we believe that China can be a key partner for us in this area. We are aware of China's achievements when it comes to modernization of your own railway network. What you have achieved in last decade in particular is truly impressive. So we have in fact identified a number of areas where we will be working with Chinese entities to improve our own railway sector. These areas are one, speed raising using existing tracks, and we have in fact identified a segment, Chennai Bengaluru Mysore segment, where a Chinese company is carrying out a feasibility study at present. Second area is what you referred to, high speed rail link. There again another Chinese company is about to complete an initial study on Delhi Chennai segment, and more detailed study will be carried out on Delhi Nagpur segment, and then we will decide how to take it forward. Other areas where we are working together in railway sector, one is station development and other is training cooperation. They are also moving on well. What I am trying to suggest to you that we have a fairly ambitious agenda when it comes to collaboration between India and China in the railway sector, and we are quite hopeful of taking it forward.
Well, I guess that's a very big yes from that comments. And my last question to wrap up this interview, what do you think are the pros and the cons, I mean, for the bilateral ties between China and India?
No, I believe relations between India and China are developing in a most satisfactory and positive manner. There is this shared assessment between leaders of our two countries that this very important process of re-emergence of India and China in the Committee of Nations, the process of development of our economies and societies must be progressed in a mutually supportive manner. That is why we have put in place the framework of strategic partnership between India and China. We are emphasizing a closer developmental partnership between our two countries. We have had frequent exchange of visits at the leadership level between India and China, and there is a very positive agenda of collaboration in different areas, which I believe creates a win-win situation for both of us. At the same time, there are issues that need to be addressed. We are cognizant of the challenges that remain. There is again a clear understanding between India and China that outstanding issues must be addressed with a sense of priority, because there are some issues which sort of slow down the full development of relations between India and China. There is also a degree of residual mistrust that needs to be taken care of. But we believe that positives in our relationship far outweigh negatives, and we are also very clear that the differences must never be allowed to come in the way of the continued development of relations between India and China, because the relationship between India and China is going to be one of the defining relationships of 21st century, and it's our historic responsibility to see that we get it right.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for your insights, sir. Thank you for joining us today on China Daily.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you, sir.